Welcome to the Cherry Picker After Dark, the Patreon exclusive podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
Nice to see you again, Mrs. Caldwell! Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we are talking about Cruel Intentions, released March 5th, 1999. I should say this month we're talking about Cruel Intentions because this is the Patreon exclusive. So for anyone watching on YouTube, this is just the preview. And if you want to watch the full episode, you can go over to my Patreon account, Zach Cherry, and you can subscribe there and get access to all of the previous episodes where we covered movies such as what I like to call, well, actually what my friend Ryan Showers has referred to, and now I refer to as the big three of that era of the ilk of movies, which is Cruel Intentions, obviously, and then Wild Things with Neve Campbell, as well as Jawbreaker, which we've already covered those. So I might kick this off because it's so funny that like all of these movies are so different, but they're kind of on the same level just based on the fact that they are kind of like, I guess, like the star power of the time. Like had that the WB of like what it was called, like what is now CW, but just like, you know, the Sarah Michelle Gellars, the Rose McGowans, Rebecca Gayheart, like all those people. Sure. Just like the hot young like 90s teen cast, like making these salacious like teen movies, if that makes sense.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Salacious is the perfect word for it because there is a genuine tonal trilogy I can sense as well. Yeah. It's not just the demographic that it was aimed toward, even though I think that's largely a factor, especially now that I've seen Wild Things from beginning to end, finally, this past year. There's also something kind of like fun/naughty, like not like borderline skank at times, but you know, salacious is a great word.
And I mean, I would also say horror adjacent, but I think to be even more specific, I would say Scream adjacent, because it is like all of these movies are like each one of them has people from Scream in it. Like this obviously has Sarah Michelle Gellar. Fun fact, Selma Blair is the voice on the phone in Scream 2 who's talking to Cece at the sorority. Right. The one that's doing the Friday the 13th. Yeah. I don't know who else was in Scream that was in Cruel Intentions. Oh, Joshua Jackson. Was also in Scream 2. And then Jawbreaker obviously has Rose McGowan, Tatum, Rebecca Gayheart from Scream 2, the sorority sister. I'm sure there's more. They're also, it's Scream and Buffy adjacent, we'll say, because it's like everyone populated like one of those franchises or another. And then Wild Things, Neve Campbell, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Go.
Thank you. Well, because obviously we're going to be mostly talking about Cruel Intentions here because we already covered Wild Things and we covered Jawbreaker. So, you know, you can subscribe if you haven't at the Freddy Krueger tier, and you'll get access to those, as well as the Scream Survivor episodes and the final girl rankings and the everything else we did. There's quite a back catalog. But I did, specifically we're going to be talking about Cruel Intentions and the pilot, the unaired pilot that never was, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar. And we will also, talk about the different adaptations of Dangerous Liaisons, which is what Cruel Intentions is based on. Because there's like 10 movies, not that many, but there's so many movies of this. But
there's a handful.
But before we do that, just to kind of like cap off the big three of it all, are you up for a ranking?
Oh shit! Of the trilogy?
Yes, the Scream adjacent teen trilogy, we'll call it, the non-horror.
Oh fuck! Oh no! See
This
what
is-
you're doing? I didn't know this was coming.
I love to keep you on your toes. Okay, I'll kind of go first because I don't have like I'm also in the same boat as you. It's so hard to because like each one of these movies is so different in specific ways. And after I was watching this last night, because like I love this movie, I love all three of these movies. Like these are my babies, and I was just thinking like I might not that I like Cruel Intentions the least, but I feel like it's so accessible as a movie. Like it's just like it's timeless. Yeah, like I and we'll get more into that in the episode, but it just feels like I could watch this whenever and it will always be the same to me, which is a great quality. That's like what I look for in movies specifically, but I feel like my tastes lately or my what I'm more so have been drawn to are the more like the campier things, because I wouldn't say that Cruel Intentions is campy. Like there's definitely camp in it, but Wild Things is like high camp. Like that is like a sexy thriller with like twists and turns. Like it is very much like horror. Jawbreaker is like really campy comedy with like little like pockets of horror, but the difference between those two movies and this one, because all three have to do with death in a way, there is a death or multiple deaths in these movies, but whereas like Cruel Intentions is, I mean, like an accidental death, we'll say by the end of the movie. Wild Things and Jawbreaker deal directly with murder, and that's what makes it more like up the Scream alley for me. And that's like just with where I'm at with everything. Like I'd be like, oh, let's watch Wild Things, or like let's watch Jawbreaker before I would watch Cruel Intentions, because I feel like Cruel Intentions is one of those movies that you could overwatch it and it would just kind of like have diminishing returns each time.
Well, see, that's so funny that you say that, because I feel like Cruel Intentions is wedged right in between Jawbreaker and Wild Things for me in terms of how many times just I have watched it, because I've only seen Wild Things once all the way through. I've seen Jawbreaker so many times, I feel like I have the movie memorized, and you and I quote it all the time. So, even as other people, we cast other people in Jawbreaker and cast other characters from Jawbreaker in other things all the time. That you have to know a movie really well in order to do that. So I feel like that's like in my veins, pumping through my blood and everything. And Cruel Intentions is somewhere in between both. Number one, because it's adapted from another movie or another story, like Dangerous Liaisons, the 1988 movie,
which was originally the
very
play.
Well. Right.
Yeah.
Which I'm less familiar with the play, and there's also an opera, and there's this and that, but I know that movie really, really well, and I remember I watched Cruel Intentions originally because I was interested in seeing how it would be adapted, especially because it was part of that whole trend in the 90s. It was also following, like, Clueless being an adaptation, a teenage rich kid adaptation of Emma, and then from Othello, and what was the other one that I was thinking? 10 Things I Hate About You from Taming of the Shrew.
I was just going to say.
Things. Well, it seemed to be very in vogue at the time. I'm sure there are others that I'm forgetting about, but those were the big ones that occurred to me while I started this screening again to watch Cruel Intentions.
Yeah.
And so it was very in vogue to like kind of take these aristocratic old tomes and set them in contemporary times with kids who had way too much access, way too much money, who were bored and didn't have anything better to do than fuck with each other. And I always thought it made sense, especially because I think it got kicked off with Clueless, which actually went the other direction, like Cher as a stand-in for a contemporary, then stand-in for Emma, wanted to do good in the world, and wanted to see ripples cast ripples in her life and see things just kind of thrive because of her existence, and that was the last time that ever happened. Everything else that followed wasn't about decency. It was about creating kind of like discord and just setting people up against each other. And anyway, so by the time I got to Cruel Intentions, I felt like I knew what I was in for. I was really intrigued. And I remember at the time, I don't remember exactly what age I was because I didn't see it in the movie theater. I think it was already cycling on cable, by the time I got to it. And I remember having a conversation with a friend who had really championed it to me. She asked what I thought afterwards. And I said, I don't know if I like it. And she said, oh, I love it. And I'm like, really? Why? And she's like, because I'm a huge fan of Dangerous Liaisons. And I'm like, that's exactly the reason I don't like it. And that was how I felt then. I think I saw it once or twice. Maybe twice, maybe 3 times. But I remember it was always just kind of like a on my face when I'd watch it. It was always just because it was on. I didn't seek it out. I never owned it. So I hadn't seen it in over 2 decades when you finally, had to screen it for this.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I've changed.
Good.
I don't think it's perfect, but I had a damn good time watching it, especially because of 2 people we've already kind of like sung a lot of praises for in the last pod where they were paired together in a movie. Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Phillippe. Their performances in this, oh my God. Like that's, and not just them. Like, I think the performances are maybe the strongest thing about it because they kind of pick up on the tone that the movie needs in order to cycle it through that camp. But also there's there's a level of earnestness that needs to exist in this for it to happen because there is a morality tale kind of like at its core. Yeah. I don't think it necessarily sticks the landing.
Okay, well, before we get into all of that, now that you've refound this love for it or found this love for it, what would you say the ranking is?
Damn. Probably Jawbreaker top.
Yeah.
Cruel Intentions just below it. And probably Wild Things below that, just because I remember there were a lot of times where it tried to be sexy where I just kind of like, oh, that's gross. But I do enjoy it. It's like putting Scream 3 at the bottom of my ranking. I don't hate Scream 3 and I don't hate Wild Things. So
that's fair. And also just wrong. But I would agree the Jawbreaker's on the top because that movie is just like that just gives me life, Okay. It's so memorable, it's so quotable, it's everything. Below that, this is where things could switch. Like, it could be Cruel Intentions one day, it could be Wild Things the other. And I will say that Cruel Intentions is probably the best made movie of all 3 of these. And we'll get more into that, but I'd say like just production wise, acting, everything about it is the top, but it's just like it doesn't, I agree, like it doesn't stick to the landing completely, especially towards the end, but there's so much that I love about it, and I have so much nostalgia for it. And then Wild Things, just because like I hadn't watched it in such a long time until Arrow released the 4K, which was last year, and revisiting it, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I remember why I love this so much because it is so fucking crazy and high camp, and like even in like the serious moments, because there's a lot of serious moments in Cruel Intentions, but with Wild Things, it's like even the seriousness of that, they find a way to just like make it so ridiculous that you can't help but love it. So I mean, like currently I'd probably put Cruel Intentions at the bottom, but that is not a reflection of its quality, because like there's a reason that this is called the Big 3, coined by Ryan C. Showers. But it's true, like this to me is like outside of any horror IP in the late 90s, these were the movies. So that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I think I'd also sooner, right now, because it's kind of like the brand new toy that I've got, this new Cruel Intentions movie. And, I think I'd sooner rewatch that just because of how much fun I had with my screening than I would Wild Things, because I still haven't rewatched Wild Things. I will at one point, but yeah, again, like the men are in that movie, and something about Ryan Phillippe, even when he plays a scoundrel, immensely watchable for me, and also, I mean, you know, I won't spend too much time because that's just gross, but he got it done for me then, and he gets it done for me now. I had to look it up just to be like, am I gross? And I found out he was 25 years old when he shot Cruel Intentions. He's 5 years older than me, so I'm like, okay, I'm not that gross.
He has like he has a baby face, and even like today, so he's like 50 now almost, or if he's not already 50, and
late
like
40s,
even now, like, you know, you see him and he still has that youthfulness to him. So I can understand, and I've seen pictures of him like when he was even younger than that, and it's just I think he's always just like looked super young,
like a cherub, yeah.
He should have been in Valentine.
Oh my god. Oh my god! Oh my god! What did you just do? Head explosion! I want him to be one of the grown-up men who gets pursued by the killer. He can't play the killer now, obviously, but I want him to be in a Valentine
David.
sequel.
Yeah,
but I want him to be one of the boys, one of the grown-up boys who David Boreanaz pursues. That'd be perfect. Oh my god. Okay, sorry. Head cannon exploding.
Yeah.
Going off.
No, it's totally fair.